Howdy ho! Hello, guys. Welcome to episode 81. All right, guys. So we're here with another awesome guest. This one, obviously early on, I interviewed a lot of people that I knew beyond just Miss Robbins, who kind of is our mutual friend. I mean, we've known each other for a good while, but we've kind of gone on our own paths, and we've had each other's numbers, and once in a while we say hello. But we're both very busy. And he's just a person I've always thought about wanting to tell his story when I started this. And, we kind of went to school together, and we did some speakings at some schools for, teachers at some colleges, and just kind of know what it's like to deal with people with, vision impairment and blindness. Showing them certain utensils and stuff that we use, like magnifiers, CCTVs, and so on. But he's always been a person that's kind of done a lot with the little that he has. I mean, he can't see it all, but I'll let him tell his story. So why don't you obviously tell us your name and, a little about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Day, and I am a person that is totally blind.
You're getting a little low.
My name is Paul Day,
There you
and
go.
I am a person who was totally blind. And I'll start out with the beginning of my story and try to fill in as much as I can.
All right.
I was born originally in Jamaica, and while there in Jamaica, I was totally sighted. But it came about that I had a eye condition called retinoblastoma, and it wasn't caught right away there. The person actually started recognizing some of the signs of it was my grandmother, who was working here in the United States as a nurse, and come home and see that my eyes were a different color. I was starting to nick the corner of walls when I was running and playing, and when they would call me when I was in my crib, I wouldn't focus on them, so they sort of realized that something was going on. The doctors at that time said there was nothing that they could really do for me, except take the eyes out, and I would probably most likely end up dying. So that wasn't an option for my family. So my grandmother managed to get me sponsored to come up here through Bullseye Hospital to get eye treatment. So at the age of 2, we moved to the United States, Camden, New Jersey, and I began my cancer treatment, radiation and chemotherapy treatment for my retinoblastoma, which is a cancer of the eyes. They weren't able to save my vision, but they were able to save my life. So take the best out of the both. I'm lucky in that sense. My family tried the best that they could, also with assistance from the New Jersey Commission for the Blind at that time, to give me a normal life.
Mm-hmm.
Try not to treat me differently than any of my other siblings. I rode bikes, I skated, I hung out with my brothers and sisters and their friends, running around the streets, playing tag, different things like that. I attended regular public school. Um, but through that time, my good family life took a downturn when some instances occurred, and our family life sort of crumbled down, and we went from a sort of good, stable life to a unstable life, and were evicted out of several houses, dealing with just being poor, not having light, heat, water at certain times. Um, I always had the opportunity to go live with my grandmother, which gave me sort of a more stable religious upbringing. But any kid wants to be back with their mother, so I would go back and forth between those two lifestyles. Until one day I was watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and he did a special or show on schools for the blind, and that's where I saw Orbit School for the Blind, and I was like, I would like to go to a school like that.
That was actually on the
Actually,
episode?
actually, I'm thinking it wasn't Orbit School for the Blind at that time.
Right.
It was he was talking about it. I mentioned it to my Braille teacher, and she said, "Oh, there's a school like that in Philadelphia."
Okay, so it was a
Oh,
similar school.
wow. Yeah, it was a similar school.
Gotcha.
And this time I must have been like maybe around 7 years old, 7, 8 years old,
Right, right.
and I had already did preschool, kindergarten, first and second grade in an all public school. Where I had friends and things like that, but this whole concept of living at school. I was always fascinated with like books and things like that. So I had this like, wow, I can go live at a school, and then I can also get out of the hellhole that I was in at that time.
Right.
Um, so I managed to, they swung it that I was able to attend Overbrook Education Center, which TJ knows it's a public school within the Overbrook School for the Blind, and it happened to have also um, a program there for kids with visual impairments alongside of kids without visual impairment. So it's
Now,
like a hybrid school.
now this was when they were together, right? OEC and OSB.
Right,
Right. Okay.
right. They were housed in the same building, so I got the package where I could attend OEC, Overbrook Educational Center, which is a public school, but stay in the dorms of Overbrook School for the Blind.
It was a huge school, had a
So
whole tundra and everything.
huge school, yeah, huge. So um, it was big, and that was sort of my first introduction, not necessarily OEC, but staying within the dorms to the world of disability. Before that, I would see people with blindness maybe once, twice, 3 times a year through events with the Commission of the Blind. Like we had an event during Christmas time. We got to go shopping for our families. I saw kids there.
Oh, I remember that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the Easter egg hunt. We got to do stuff like that. But you really didn't like talk to the kids while you were there because everybody was still with their families and stuff like that. But
Right.
so a kid coming from Camden, my first this first day sticks in my head all the time. Like my first day in the dorms. I'm sitting there on my bed. I have a bed and a locker and a desk in like this huge room. It's like maybe 4 beds to a section, sectioned off by these lockers. Maybe 12 of us to you know to an area. And I'm sitting there, and then like these other kids start arriving, and they're like kids with all different types of like disabilities. There are kids there that are also visually impaired, but there's kids there with at the time I didn't know the word for it, but it must have been like autism because some of them were
Right.
nonverbal.
Right. Right.
Some of
See,
them,
you
you
saw
know,
more of this than I did because I was only there for 2 years, and then they went to OEC and we moved. So I
right,
didn't I didn't get to see any of this. I mean, I saw some of what you're talking about, like the Easter egg hunt and all that, but a lot of you were there a lot longer than I was.
right. So it's like, um, so I'm being exposed to all these different people, kids and some of them were like older adults because Overbrook you could go until you're age 21. So I'm being exposed to all these people with different disabilities. It's just like blowing my mind at that point because I've never been around it um, before. So this this I can say is sort of like my foundation of sort of being able to relate to other people, different races, different disabilities, knowing the struggles of the different disabilities. We have people there that couldn't hear, so we had to know a little bit of sign language.
Right.
If we wanted to interact and play with them. Um, so this is really, without me knowing it at that time, really set the foundation for me to go into like a field of like disability advocacy, disability rights, or things for people with disabilities because
Mm.
of my experience within those dorms um, and the things that I saw there.
Where did you feel like you were like one of the only ones out there before this?
I knew there were other blind people out there just because of the stuff that I did within, New Jersey's Commission for the Blind, atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, I was always only the one blind person, like in my community,
Right. Right.
in my circle. I didn't have any blind friends. I definitely did not see anyone in a wheelchair or using crutches or anyone that was deaf until that day when I first got to the dorms. Like one of my bedmates next to, the bed next to me was in a wheelchair.
Hmm.
You know, I've never seen that before. There was somebody that was on crutches because they couldn't, their legs couldn't support them. So when they walked, they had to walk very slowly. And being 8 years old, I had to start taking all of this into account. Like I just couldn't fly and run around the dorm now because I had to take into account that one of my roommates could be coming out of the bathroom that was on crutches, and if I just knocked into him and he has fragile bones, I could hurt him.
Right.
So it really started to make me think of other people, think of you know their needs beyond my needs, and to consider them, even in things that we wanted to do. We wanted to play a game. We just couldn't exclude somebody just because they couldn't run and jump like we could. Just like we didn't want them to exclude us in school, because we couldn't see. Like, oh, you can't play ball because you can't see. You know what I mean? So
Right. But
sort
even
of
at
helped you.
and I was just gonna say, even just, but it's weird because, like you said, you're like 8, and it's almost like you're living in a college dorm. But you're so impressionable as a kid, so you're kind of like, but you're taking it the good way because you're like a sponge. You're just picking up all these things that you have yet to learn, but you shouldn't have learned it yet because you're only 8 years old.
Right,
So it's like,
right.
in a way, it's a really good life experience to kind of take you down the road because, again, look where you are now. But 8 years old, and you're gonna pick up on a lot, and you're gonna remember a lot of it because it's like I said, it's the first interaction you're having with anything, but especially with these other people that are so different from you. And you were all, I'm sure you were the one that was considered different in all your groups, and so yeah, that's pretty interesting to be doing all that at 8 years old.
Yeah, and I tell my wife now. I've told her like since we've been together because there's times when things have come up and I'm like, oh yeah, I can relate to that or this occurs, and she's like, how do you know? And I was like, well, I knew a kid back in the dorm, and and he had this, he had that, and there's other times I speak to other people, and they're like, oh, you're just a know-it-all, how could you possibly know that? And I was like, well, because I knew before I knew that it was like autism or it was like whatever. We had a kid that was in the dorm, and if you got him upset, he could like he had like superhuman strength, where he would like punch these like thick, heavy, like 300-pound like lockers and make them rock. Like I've seen this, you know what I mean? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I've seen how they taught us how to diffuse those type of temper situations, or one kid that was prone to biting, but for some reason he wouldn't bite me, so I would guide him from the cafeteria to the dorms back and forth because for some reason he was calm with me, even beyond other staff members. If he was upset that day, he would walk with me, and he was totally nonverbal. And I still remember the kid's name. Like I'm like I've had all these life experiences that people wouldn't expect me to have, so I could speak on a lot of different things because I've seen it, and like people just and then like a lot of the times things don't pop back into my head until something triggers it,
Mm-hmm.
and then like a memory comes back. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think everyone gets
So
that kind of thing. Like you get a smell or something,
yeah,
something you just go like, oh, like there's a cologne I still have that I think I wore back then, just like as a kid. It just my mom got it for me, and I don't ever wear it, but every time I smell it, it just like I get these little emotions of just like,
it
oh
triggers you. Yeah,
yeah. You don't even really know exactly what it all is and what all happened, but it just there's a feeling you get, and you just like, I don't know, but I felt good. It's like, all right, I like
right.
this.
Because I used to tell her like I used to like think every day. I think they call them echolalics now. I never knew the term for it, but you know, imagine 8, 9 years old, you're sitting in the cafeteria for breakfast, and all you're hearing, around you are kids making noises, mocking the buzzer that we had for the bell. So they're going, going like that, or making like just
Right.
noises. And like you just learn to like sort of tune it out. That's just your natural background. Like to me, that was normal to me. Or people, repeating whole conversations that they overheard between staff members in school the previous day, or racist comments from their family members when they went home on the weekend. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's stuff that I would hear, that I knew those type of people. But now there's a term for it that I know now. But I'm like, yeah, I went to school. Like that was my those are the people that I woke up with, went to breakfast with, and went to dinner with.
Yeah, every day.
You know what I mean? Like that's who those are the last people I saw before I went to bed. You know, so it's like to me that's not strange. That's normal.
Yeah. Well, that's why when people say like talking to people with disabilities, wherever, like, oh, you're not normal, but like, what really is normal? Because people's
Right.
normalcy is much different from others. Like that is your normalcy, but for most people that isn't. Being basically in a dorm and being at school for almost your whole existence at that point in time is that was your normal. But for most people, like their normal is to just when the school bell goes up or it goes off, they go home, and that's it.
Right. And I would have the most. There's one kid that sticks in my head. He was my same age. He would be considered on the spectrum, I guess. Might be considered nonverbal. He could have general conversation if you ask him a question. But me and him got along because I would sit there and just talk with him. He was one of the echolalics. I loved him because I mean, he would sit there and he would repeat some of the announcements that went over the PA system. He would repeat like conversations between his teachers and staff members, and some of them were very interesting because I guess they thought because he wasn't nonverbal, they could say whatever they wanted in front of him, not knowing that he was remembering it, and then would go later and repeat it verbatim and even put voices to it. But if you would sit there and like this, I would approach him as a person and say, "Hey, blah blah blah, what's going on?" And he was very intelligent. Like he could have a conversation. At this point, we were 13 and 12 and 13, so I've known him. I've known him since I was 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But we could have a conversation that other adults wasn't having with him because they thought that he wasn't as verbal or as smart, I guess. But at home, when he was just chilling out in the dorm and we were sitting at the table, you can have a conversation with me one on one, and I still remember him to this day very vividly to this day.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, so from that whole experience, that was maybe up through eighth grade, and at that time I attended OEC, so I had friends that were both blind and sort of like well blind and fully sighted while I was going to day school, going to public school. But during all this time as well, I'm still balancing the life that I was living or coming from at home. So I was going through some guilt at that time of sort of gotten out of the situation that the rest of my siblings, were in. I was getting 3 meals a day when I know they weren't. The older ones had left home. My younger brother was still there. So I was also taking in all of this new uh, sort of lifestyle of being exposed to these different disabilities and different people, but at the same time feeling guilty about leaving my younger brother in this not so safe, not best situation, and me having a roof and a bed over my head and 3 meals. So I'm balancing all of that at the same time as I'm going through these new changes.
Right.
Um,
And a young mind at that, just a young brain
yeah,
that's trying to function in this world and trying to figure out everything out for himself. But I think in the end, I mean, you look at where you are. I mean, I think that's probably what really made you as independent as you are, because you were there for how long, and you're a super independent person. We'll get to a lot of things you can do and can't do or whatever, but you're always a person I always consider you were like such an advantageous person. Like you just made everything work for you. And again, I'm sure there was, again, you have your family stuff. There's a lot of pain and things you go through. You have a disability, so you most likely have some, mental health and whatever, but you always seem to have everything, like I always knew that whether it's clothing, it was like, well, how does he get dressed? Like, how does he know what he's wearing? Well, it's like, oh, he has braille labels on his shirts and things like that. And it's like, you always seemed to like know what you were doing as far as just how to survive with the that lack of vision that you have. And so it was always interesting being around you because I would kind of be like a sponge off of you, figuring out how you do these things, and I have some vision. But I would like I said, I would pretty much assume that you going to that school for as long as you did and just basically kind of forced into independence, it's kind of molded you into how became who you are.
Yeah, that is definitely what did it. It was sort of being put in that situation, sort of forged really what I am. You know, I didn't, I can say I didn't have a normal upbringing, so that upbringing definitely did make me that independent person that I am today. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and even when I had the chance to go back home or wherever, I was like, no, I don't want to go back home. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be home and then being dependent on other people and things like that. So,
Right.
when I graduated and I went to high school and I came back to Philadelphia, continue high school. Because after I left eighth grade, I did a year at Lawrenceville Prep. And after that, I came back to Philadelphia. I just wanted to be back around like my friends, things like that. And, you know, that made me be more independent and through thanks to the grace of people like Ema or Miss Robbins as you know her,
Right.
sort of been sort of like that underlying guiding force since I got to Overbrook, OEC at the age of 8, has really been um, that main force that has helped me do everything that I could do. It wasn't for her there with support and everything that she did for me, I probably wouldn't have turned out. I know I wouldn't have turned out as well as I've done now. Because being there, I didn't have any family there. I didn't have a strong family structure to begin with at this point in time. And then being away in Philadelphia, I sort of isolated from that family structure. Although I went home on the weekends to my grandmother's house and would come back, I was being raised by staff members. You know what I mean? I was being raised by strangers
Right. Right. Yeah.
throughout that week. I didn't have you know, those sort of things instilled in me that you get from your parents when you're home 24/7, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So, Miss Robbins really, she was there for me. At times when I needed, she packed my school lunches and things like that because I didn't like or eat some of the things that they had for lunch during the day. So she was my mom.
Yeah. No.
She was my mom throughout all of those years.
Yeah, I did an
And
episode with her a couple weeks ago or about a month ago now, but I mean I was never not going to do her episode, but and I've told her over the years just how much she's meant to me over because if I didn't have her, one, I was going to OSB for high school and I didn't believe in myself. A lot of teachers told me I didn't belong and I was never going to go to a good high school, and she made some magic happen and got me in there, and but she believed in me when I never did, and people like that are so amazing to have in your life because everybody kind of just does what the narrative is. It's just like go by the book, whether it's your teacher or your doctor or therapist or whatever. But it's the people that kind of go above and beyond and actually give a shit, and they look out for you, and you didn't ask for it. And part of the thing I've been doing in this like second year of doing this has been interviewing a lot of like parents and caregivers and just the people that just because a lot of times the people with the disability get the most shine as far as when we're talking about the story, and we don't ever really talk about the parents that are giving up their careers to take care of their 30-year-old autistic child who needs their love and care every day. Or in this case Miss Robbins, who is a mother figure to a lot of us, and she I showed her some of the feedback that she got from some of her former students, and she was just like she didn't think she had that much of an impact, and I'm like, well, maybe you didn't think that to the average student, but there's some of us that you should know you had an impact on, because you basically forced yourself into our life. You just said, here, I'm helping you. You're going to succeed one way or another, in a good way. And, again, I've said many times on here and to her that how much she's meant to me. And I know how much she's meant to you as well, because, we're two of the people she really took under her wing and did so much for. Without people like her, like our existence or where we are in our lives would not as matter, or wouldn't be what it is, and it wouldn't be probably as positive as it is.
Most definitely. Desperate times. I mean, she opened up her home to me. I was able to stay there with her those times when
Just come closer to the
I
mic a
came
little
back.
bit. You're a little low.
You know, times when I came
There you
back
go. Perfect.
during my high school years. I was able to stay with her. A couple of times when I didn't want to go back home to that home environment where I was, where wasn't once again it wasn't a conducive home environment to be in. You
Right.
know, and her and at that time I was playing sports again, so a few of my coaches opened up their homes for me. One of my close friends opened up his home for me. So I've been lucky to have people that have cared for me, who have been able to sort of give me a place where I could stay in Philadelphia, so I can continue to go to high school, and I can continue to sort of get on that right path and not be stuck in Camden in a bad situation that probably wouldn't have worked out well for me
Right.
at all.
A lot of people don't
So
know Camden is a very bad area for the most part, but it's not that far from Philly. And again, there's plenty of bad areas in Philly as well, but Philly's a lot bigger, and there's a lot more opportunities, especially medically and just schools. And there's some stuff there in Camden, but yeah, I mean, most people don't really make it out of Camden easily.
correct. So I've had a lot of people that have played a very important role in my life. Um, the one coach that I mentioned, and I said it to him a couple of times, but again, don't feel like you say it enough. But it's Jerry Daly opened up his home to me, and I was able to stay there with him and his son and his grandmother and his grandfather, and I was able to stay there for maybe 2 years or so,
Wow.
until I left to go to college. And it's just people like that you can never thank enough.
Right.
And I don't think they would ever know how much they really do mean to you and what they've done for you.
Right.
Without people like that having that faith in you, um, who knows where you would have ended up. Like, you don't even want to think about where you might have ended up.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember if you exactly said what age, but what age did you officially lose your sight?
Officially lost it after all the treatment and stuff. I'm saying like maybe around age 4, 5.
Okay.
At some point I had some light perception. I remember walking down school hallway and seeing some light. I remember sitting on my porch and seeing like the police lights going down the street. So
Right.
around that age, I was pretty much totally blind once I started, regular kindergarten.
Right.
So
Because I remember meeting you at OSB. Miss Robbins introduced me to, and we were both like so young. I vaguely remember you, but I was pretty sure because you had a cane, and I was pretty sure you couldn't see then. But I was so young, I don't really. But yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was crazy time, but yeah, I mean like I said, it was so much going on because I got lost in the shuffle of just being transitioned over to OEC, and of course I stayed with my mom and everything, so I didn't go through what you did. Probably would have helped me at least for a period of my life, but it wasn't really much of an option. But Miss Robbins wasn't a huge focal point in my life until she was off and on here and there. But when she became my fourth grade teacher, and then became a vision itinerant the following year, and then now she is what she is, but. Yeah, like I said, back to what we were saying, like I said, it's super important to have those people. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't have that. I mean, look at, the unstable household that you had, it could have been better, could have been worse. But I mean, there's people that just don't have even stable parents or stable friends or stable whatever. And then here, people like you and I get lucky and we have these teachers and certain people that just, they're not getting paid to do this stuff. That's not what
right.
they're paid to just, in my case, she was my fourth grade teacher. She's paid to just teach me, times tables and things like that. She's not,
Yeah, and at the time she was my reading teacher. I saw her maybe a few times a week for like an hour. It
yeah,
was I don't know why she wanted to help me because I was not I wasn't assigned to her as a full time student. You know, it was just it was just fate. I don't know, and I haven't even sat the. I don't think I've even asked her like why. Because
yeah. I
there
asked her why, and for me, and I don't know if I got the answer I wanted. She just because I asked her like what she saw in me, and she just there's just certain people, and she wasn't like that with everybody. I mean, she was always nice and kind and friendly, but
right.
and she's gonna hate this because we're just saying nothing but nice things about her. But
Yeah,
but
she can't stand that
yeah,
stuff.
but I told her like one time she was grading one of my papers and she gave me like it was like an A minus, or she was going to give me an A minus, but she said, you can do, there's one problem that you did wrong and you know what you did wrong. Go back and look at it. And then I went and saw what she meant and I did it and then fixed it. And she gave me like an A plus, 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 plus. And she knew it was going to make me happy. And I was so happy about it. I was showing everybody, all my friends. And it was just like, she didn't need to do that. All she had to do was just like, okay, you got one question wrong. You did well. Good. On to the next thing. But no, she like made sure that I knew what I did wrong. So she gives you like this great balance of like tough love and love at the same time because she knows if she's like
Yeah,
overly loving, you're not
you're
gonna yeah
absolutely right. You're
yeah
absolutely right.
you're not
'Cause I
gonna be
remember
able
like
to accept it as well if she's just like always giving you hugs and shit. But
Cause I
yeah,
remember I would go there. It was a bunch of it was three of us that would go there. It was one of our sort of mainstream classes. So it was me, my two other friends that were blind, and we would go there and we would be a part of um the sighted kids that were there at OEC and it was reading class. We had beanbags or whatever else. So we would get there and you know she wasn't necessarily like you couldn't sit there and say, "Oh, she liked Paul better than this other person." Like if anything, she yelled at me more. You
right
know.
right right right
um,
oh yeah
so yeah. So if anything, I got more of the focus. Like you need to do this or you need to read, and she always made me read. You need to
yep
read this book. You know what I
uh-huh
mean? But coming from her, I didn't take it as being mean. I'm like,
no
this person cares about me, right? And like I didn't want to disappoint her. I could give two craps about my other teachers. They want to yell and do this and do that.
right
Oh, you need to fix this math problem. I'm like, well, you're not teaching it to me, so I did my best, whatever. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
But with her, no, I gotta get her assignment done first because I don't want to disappoint her.
right
Because when she was disappointed, she wouldn't yell. She just
no
had this tone,
yeah
and I'm like, oh crap,
oh
like
shit
I
yeah
disappointed her.
yeah
Stupid. Why would you do that? You know what I mean? It's
yeah
just some people just have that genuine heart, and you can feel it,
yeah
and
because
you don't want to hurt
even when
those
I acted out and whatever, like I would yell at her, I'd fight with her, but I would never really curse at her in a way of just like calling her a bitch or whatever. Like I did that with other teachers and even teachers that didn't deserve it, but
people. Right,
I never did that. There was always just like a respect thing where I was just like, okay.
right,
I mean, I would get out of line here and there, would curse, and like when she was, like I said with the OSB conversation, she's told me her and my mom basically got together. You're going to OSB or FLC. You're not going to OSB, and I was like, oh, this is bullshit and whatever else. But I never just like belittled her and told her like how she's nothing to me, like because I genuinely did love and care about her. But yeah, that whole disappointment thing that was just kind of way over your head when you knew you just didn't, get up to the standards that she believed in you, and it was like, oh man, that hurts.
definitely.
So what did you from like your did you go? What did you do with high school? Like, how did you
So
evolve from being an 8-year old into being with all these roommates and so on, and how did you develop from there on out?
so I went to Lawrenceville Prep, um, which is a private school in New Jersey, a top private school in New Jersey for uh, for high school. And again, I would have never applied there, because I didn't have the confidence in myself like I, did in my education.
Right.
Because again, I wasn't going home every day with a parent that was looking at my report card. I would go home to the dorm and, you know, their whole thing was make sure we didn't kill each other or get hurt, take us to dinner, give us some whatever recreation we had or the schedule that they planned out, get us to bed. Boom, boom, boom. Make sure we did our homework and they knew that we had a homework too. But no one's looking over my shoulder.
Right.
That's where Ema was, or Miss Robbins. I would go there. I would go to her office or her classroom before school started because the kids in the dorm left for school earlier than I did, so I couldn't stay there. So I would go to her, and that's where I would sit there, and she would make sure I had my homework done, or I would ask her questions about things that I've read, or there was like this big, huge globe outside of her classroom that I would just go and just study and study and study until it was time for us to go to class, and then I would leave, and then I would go to my regular school. So, I guess she recommended that I go there because she would. I guess she saw my grades and knew my potential. Like I didn't even see my report cards at the end of the year. I don't even think my family got them. No one mentioned them to me. I mean, I just felt disconnected.
You didn't have any
My
IEP
family was
meetings?
from my education. Um, I don't. I remember having them with myself being there, but nobody from my family. Like no one from my family ever came across that bridge
Right.
to see me when I was going to school.
Gotcha.
Parent night, I was the only kid there without parents. Right. So some
Right.
people from the dorms would come down. So I'm going through all this alone. Which sort of sort of either scarred me now that I have like sort of a detachment from some of my family. Like I could go a year without speaking to some people in my family and not feel bad about it. And my wife is like, "Why don't you call this person, call that person?" And I'm like, I think about them, but I had to build up a wall around me so much from a young age to survive that, not being in contact with my family.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't, I would have been depressed and I wouldn't have been able to survive.
Right.
I've had to put up that wall of having to deal with separation, and it's something that I try to work on to this day of keeping in contact with people. Because I'll think every day about people. I'll think every day about my closest friends, but I just can't call.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, because every time,
and
honestly, like when we did some of those speaking to those colleges and stuff, and I always felt like you were very guarded. And again, I was also super awkward and shy, and so it didn't help. But I always felt like you were really guarded. I mean, when your
I
wife would
am
be there,
very guarded.
right? So when your wife was around, you were a little less guarded because you had someone to play off of, and of course, Miss Robbins is there too. But I always like it wasn't that, like I said, I didn't take it personal, and I was also really young in high school, and so. But I always felt like you were guarded. Whereas like now, I can hear you talking, you're kind of just like letting it all out and whatever, which is good. I mean, I know you're doing it for a certain reason. Obviously, you're doing an interview, you should probably open up a little. But still, every time I was around you, like I never took it personal, but I always was like, he can tell he's like very, very guarded.
Yeah, and that's true. But like if people will call me, I would, or they're here. I'm very open. I'm a very open person, but it's something that I'm going to have to deal with at some time. But that's something that an 8-year-old, 9-year-old had to do to survive
Right.
that time in his life, and it's sort of ongoing as well because again, I'm in Philadelphia. My family's in Camp.
Right.
I'm seeing back and forth. I'm very close to like my my sister Marcia. Like we're very close. I just saw her last weekend. Um, yeah, she was a cheer yesterday. So I'm very close to her, and if they call me, I can talk and whatever. But it's like it, my wife has this saying that even when we were dating, she's like, if I didn't call you, you wouldn't call me, would you? And I was like, no, you're probably right. Like I could probably go 3, 4, 5 days without speaking to you. I was like, but it's not that I don't like you. I was like, I just don't have to speak to everybody like every single day.
Yeah.
And like I know it's bad and it's wrong, and I'm trying to work on it. And that's my New Year's resolution every year to
Yeah.
be like a better communicator, better engaged person with people that I care about and people that I know.
Yeah.
And I try to work on it each year, but it's hard just to fall back into that safe.
Well, you don't. you don't
hard.
realize how much your past really has a hold on you until like you get older, and then you start to realize like how damaged am I, and like what, because with you in your case, like
Right,
you went through, you basically were living partial, like in a partial adulthood when you were a kid, and obviously the struggles with your family and just obviously dealing with your disability and all that. Like there's so much. Again, I'm sure you were learning mobility and all these things that you're trying to like learn how to adapt, how to make a life for yourself and adapt to just a society that's not built for blind people
right.
as a kid. And now you're now slowly getting to the point where you're like, okay, I'm obviously you have a wife, you have a kid, and you have one or two kids.
2 kids.
Two kids. You have two kids, and again, like so, you have so much you have to like manage, and you have a career and everything you do, and it's got to be hard to just like you probably didn't have a lot of time to kind of decompress and just realize what you were lacking because you didn't have time for it. You had to kind of keep a hard shell, and again, you're an 8-year-old trying to be an adult, and you were kind of forced into it in a way, even though you wanted to go there, but no 8-year-old should probably do what you did, but you managed to make it work for you. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's one of the, we all have things that we, especially when we've had really rough past that, it's stuff that just carries with us. And it's just, with me, I'm very socially awkward sometimes, even though I'm more, you would say like, oh, now you speak and you do all these things for a living and all that. And it's like, yeah, I do. But there's times where it's just like, I go to my friend's house and I shut down and I don't want, there's 30 people in a room and I get mad at myself. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like,
Yeah, that's me, man. I could sit there and I'm just there within me, but I'm also observing everything that's going on around me.
right,
I've
yeah, yeah,
always had to do that as well. Like I've been in these rooms, I just had to observe like, okay, that person. And I'm soaking it all in, and they come like, why you so quiet? I was like, I'm actually not quiet in my head. I'm switched on. I know everything that's going on in this room. Like I know
right,
that this person's mad at that person left,
yeah,
that person's come in. You know what I mean? And a lot of it again is being able to survive out there in the streets as a blind person. Like you have to be switched on.
right,
And I should tell people like when I step out of my door, I have to be switched on. Like
exactly,
when I was living alone, I was like, I have to be switched on. I don't know if someone's gonna try to rob me because they see a cane in my hand. You know what I mean? I got to be aware of like there's a car that's out of control coming up from behind. Like I can't see it. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's drama happening down the block. People are fighting. There's going to be gunshots. Like I can't be
yeah,
blissfully unaware when I step out of my door. Only time I get the rest is when I put my foot back in my door and I lock it and I know there's no one else in here with me that's trying to hurt me. Then I can relax.
right,
But for any blind person, a person with a disability, like as soon as we leave our house, we have to switch on because we've been trained through mobility. We gotta like, if we're traveling to a destination, we gotta have it already mapped out in our head, landmarks, and hope to God there's no like construction or detours. You know what I mean? Like
right.
it's a lot for us to do.
What's it
It's not
like
illegal.
being blind in a huge city like Philadelphia?
When I was growing up there, it was sort of good and sort of bad in a sense. Bad from the sense of like you always have to be switched on, right? And it's a huge city,
Right,
so distances to get to things. But Philadelphia is a good city because there's a lot of transportation. There's a bus almost on every damn street. The transportation has gotten much better than it was when I was there. Every bus talks now, basically.
right,
The L talks, but you could get around, and there were streets, and you could learn it, and that's where I learned my mobility was in Philadelphia. But just some of the places that I had to live while I was there. Sometimes I lived in North Philadelphia. I lived in West Philadelphia with friends and things like that. And places where I've been, you had to be switched on. You know, um, I was robbed there. I was robbed in Philadelphia. And that was the one night that I wasn't switched on. You know what I mean? Like it shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have put ourselves in that type of situation for it to occur. We could have gotten out of it, but you let your guard down for one night, and that's what happens. But
right.
you know, um, but yeah, I think Philadelphia is a good city to be in if you are a blind person. I actually just came back from visiting there again for a week um, this past week, and got to go down Market Street again. And there's like talking light, like the audible lights are there. I'm like, wow, I wish I'd have had this when I was here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
Well, and technology is
but it,
different too.
yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? I'm like,
They have like that app like Blind Square, which is a GPS, and like there's a lot of stuff out there that can also help you get through your life beyond just having a cane.
right. So I'm like, if there was a city that I would go back to, I miss Philadelphia. I hope to get back there. Um, but I had to live in like huge city. It would either be Philadelphia or again, it would be New York, where where you have that transportation system, or if you're in an area, everything that you need is in a couple of block radius of you. You can come out of your apartment or whatever and get to a coffee
Right.
shop or get to a whatever, or get to a subway stop without having to like where I am now. I don't like it because it's not really any transportation options up here. There's like one bus line down the street, but it only takes you like three doesn't take you anywhere. It goes like down like one main street
Right.
to like a mall somewhere, but it's nothing to really walk to. Can't get to anything good. It's more residential.
Yeah.
It's just not ideal for a blind person.
Well, one of the reasons I ask is like recently, my sister's father, he and I are still we're close, and he was talking to me. We are just on the phone, just catching up, and he was saying that he does some things where he goes to hospitals and grabs these containers and whatever. And I guess he was down by Will's Eye, and he saw a bus driver dropped off a blind guy. He dropped him off in the middle of the street and just drove off. And again, everybody has bad and good instances with the bus company and transportation. But there's a lot of things like that happen with people like you and I, and the lack of like care. And again, there's some really great bus drivers and really caring people out there that don't do those kinds of things. But again, that's kind of like the opposite of what you're saying, as far as there's a lot of blind people that get screwed over too, where it's just like, obviously the clear thing is not to do is just to leave them in the middle of the road.
Oh yeah,
And
I mean I hate that even with like uh, Uber, right? Coming home, I give them clear like it's a house with this colored awning, full front of the driveway, and they let me like three houses down. And I'm like, God damn it! So to the point where like I've gotten like a tile, one of those little BP tile things, and I put it on the house.
right,
So when I get out of the car, I can activate it because I know that the dumbass is not going to leave me right in front of the damn address. Even like give them the address. It's like, they leave me two houses up or three houses down. And I'm like, come on, like I'm paying you. Just pull up here in front of the driveway and just let me out.
right,
And for the most part, some of them get it, but you just have those that just don't care. Or you're trying to get one and you're like, I'm standing right in front of the doctor's office. It's blah, 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 blah. I have a leather jacket. I have a cane. And I'm the only one standing here by the curb leaning against this pole. I don't see you. Like, there's no way you can't see me. It's like, and then lo and behold, like someone's walking by, I was like, do you see this certain car? Like, yeah, he's up there at the corner. I'm like, you need to come down here and pick me up. I'm there at the car. I was like, look, I can't see. I'm not walking to try to come find you. You're
right,
driving. Come down here and find me.
right,
You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
come on, dude. Like, don't make my life more difficult than it has to be, right? Like,
Yeah,
don't make it more difficult.
you're a dark skinned man in broad daylight next to a giant pole. Like that's the stuff that I've talked about many times, where there's a lot of these people that do these specific jobs, whether it's Uber or bus or whatever, and they want to get paid, 60, 70 grand a year, but they're getting paid 30 grand. So they're like, well, I'm only getting paid to, pull up to this curb. I'm not going to give you another $10,000 worth of effort.
Right.
And so those are the people that really make our jobs harder. And then there are people, like I have another friend named Paul, who he became close with his bus driver, and the bus driver drops him off. He goes by the stop, which is about a block away, and he drives him and drops him off right in front of his house. He doesn't do that for everyone else. He just does it just for him because he knows he's blind, and it's a struggle to get across this really big street.
Right.
And stuff like that is just amazing because it's like that's again, and you don't have to expect that from everybody, but it's just, work with me here, especially in your case. You're
Right.
totally blind. Like, come on, give me the benefit of just help me out. I'm right here. You
Right.
come get me.
Right. And there's been awesome Uber drivers, that I've had, or even like cab drivers that I've had that have, you know, come up and, have offered to take me to my door. I'm like, no, it's fine. Here is good. I just need to get to the, foot of the driveway or whatever, or right in front of the house, and I can get the rest of the way. But those are the people that I then go and tip, because I'm like, this person went above and beyond. There's one time I was taking my daughter to the hospital. She was having an allergic reaction. We had to call Uber, and the driver came. He got us there as fast as possible, and I got out of the car with my daughter. I'm going into the emergency room. I'm figuring, once I get inside, I can, get some help getting her to wherever we have to go.
Right.
But he actually, because the security guard was like, yeah, the children's ward is down that way.
Right. Down that way
So I
to
got to point,
you.
like, you mean
Yeah.
down that way? He's like, yeah, down that hallway.
Yeah.
You'll see the room.
Those are words that visually impaired and blind people hate when
Yeah.
they point.
And like,
Even for me, I can see some, and they did that to me and my friend Julie the other day. We were at a little market for like vegetables and stuff, and we were asking where the potatoes were, and he goes over that way, and me and Julia just look at each other like, oh God, here we go. We just know.
right. So I'm like holding the cane. I'm like, okay, dude, I bought the cane so people know that I'm blind. I'm gonna need a little bit of assistance. I've never been to this hospital before. So I turn down there with her. She's breaking out in hives. I'm like, okay, I'll walk down that way, and hopefully I'll hear some sound coming out of a room, or if I hear somebody, I'll just turn to her and say, "Where's the emergency room for children?" Right? As we do, we adapt. We hit one obstacle, we're like, okay,
Yep.
I got one clue, this way. So
Gotcha.
then lo and behold, I hear a voice behind me. He's like, "Here, I'm here with you. I'm your Uber driver. Come on this way." And he gets us in there and gets us, you know, to the desk. And I'm like, he didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he didn't have to get out of his car. He didn't have to come in to make sure that we got there, you know, and 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 was seated. I'm like, people like that should be recognized as good people going above and beyond, and it should, you
Yeah.
know, beyond that 5-star rating and blah blah blah. I mean, I try to leave a comment on there, but I don't know if anybody reads those. But I
Right.
mean, he should have gotten some accolades for that, because he got us there quickly,
Yeah.
safely and quickly, and helped me get to where I needed to be.
Yeah, because even if he didn't do it for you because you were blind, he just did it for your child. Like, it's still something.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, he did it for both,
Right.
but that stuff is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, above and beyond.
Can you tell us like some of the things you do just to kind of make life easier for you? Like I was saying earlier about how you use, I'm pretty sure I wasn't mistaken about this, but the braille labels on your clothing, so like, what color and what kind of clothes you're wearing. Like just certain things you do for just to make your life easier.
Well, I'm a big technology guy, so I fully adapted technology. I've always been interested in it since, you know, my days at Overbrook in high school, when we first started using JAWS,
Right.
and computers. They really gave us, like, well, way before then, even like with the braille light and all that kind of stuff. Because being blind and being vision impaired, we always had some kind of technology around us. So we were sort of more versed to adapting to things.
Mm.
But I loved the internet. I loved the computers. I would surf the internet all day at school. So my daily life now, I use a lot of technology, the different apps, well, the ones that you mentioned, like Foursquare, CNI GPS, CNAI. I use a lot for colors and things like that. I had Kurzweil for a long time, using that to scan material. But now I just use some apps on my phone to do that as well. And then there's just different things that you adapt to. Like the biggest thing we really had to adapt to is like when we had our first kid, and there's not a lot of stuff out there for blind parents with sighted children. All the groups and things that you see is usually sighted parents with blind children, the flip, because I guess we're not supposed to have children. So
Right.
there's not a lot that's out there for us.
Yeah.
So we would have to. So let's say we knew we were going to have to give medicine, so we would get someone to help us at first, like with the syringes. Like we knew that she was going to need 3 millimeters of medication. That was her dosage for like common things like Tylenol and such things. We would pull 3 millimeters and then notch it with a knife, so we knew what a 3 millimeter mark was, or a piece of tape, you know, on that inside of the syringe, the plunger that comes out.
Yeah.
So you would, when it got, yeah, you mark it there. And anytime we got medicine from the doctor for her, like if it was like syringe or like, and still antibiotics, we would do the same type of thing. It got easier when the doses came to five because those syringes come in 5, 10, 15, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But in the beginning, you sort of have to adapt and do little things like that. So low tech things solve high tech problems. Um, so we do things like that. I still use Braille a lot, so I will Braille and label things. I'll label like um, certain bottles that I need quick access to that I don't like always having to whip out my phone and see what it is. I'll put Braille on that. I'll put dots on the microwave that we used to have. Now I have one that's through Alexa. I can talk to it now, but even then, I'll still put like some Braille labels on it just in case Alexa isn't working. Still use it. I try to find air conditioners now. I have one that runs to Alexa, so I try to leverage
Yeah, I got one of
technology
those
that's
too.
out there now. Yeah, to sort of not have to go through that. But even then, those buttons that are on there, I try to label some of the important ones like off and on, just in case technology, Alexa goes down or the app disconnects. I can at least do some minor things on it, not totally left in the lurch.
Right.
Um, and for our kids' clothes, they had uniforms, and so we used to have certain uniforms for each one. So I would put like a staple inside of the collar, not the collar, but the label that's inside of the shirt.
Uh-huh.
Like, for one of my daughters, it was a certain color. I would like put it deep somewhere where it wouldn't, irritate or whatever. Tie that in there so we feel that okay, that's that shirt. Trying to think, cause it's so grained into you that you don't even like remember what you're doing to do it. But yeah, it's like little stuff like that, and we try our best not to rely on our kids. They're both sighted. Um, the worst thing that probably could have happened to me and my wife. We're at this event, sporting event for all blind people. It was a go ball event.
Can you explain what
Walking
goal ball
towards
is
it.
before you do that? A lot of people aren't
Yeah,
gonna know
go
what that
ball
is.
is Yeah, go ball is a sport for the blind. I think it was developed either World War I or World War II for the soldiers that were coming back from the war that were blinded by the war. So it's a ball with a bell in it, about the size of a basketball, but a bit heavier than that. And there's 3 people on a side at per team at a given time, but a team can have much as maybe 6 to 9 players for substitutes and things like that. And the court is about the size of a basketball court, I believe. And all the lines and markings and positions on the court are laid down with tape with rope underneath it, so you can tactilely feel your position and the boundaries of the court.
Right.
And everyone's blindfolded, regardless whether you can see or not. You don't have to be totally blind to play, but you have to
Right.
be blindfolded to play. And you're restricted within a certain area. Each team is restricted to a certain side. Sort of like tennis, you can't cross that net.
Yeah. Right.
So the object of the game is to roll or bounce the ball, and it has to be out of your hand by a certain point, or it's considered what's called a high ball, and that results in a penalty. So you have to release it before a certain point, and it roll it or bounce it down towards the other team, and they have to dive or block it whichever way that they want to stop it from going into the net that's situated behind
Right.
behind
Kind
the
of
team.
soccerish.
Right, and each team is each goal is 1 point. And there's been some variations for time and versus like when the shot. We got a shot clock now. When I started, there was like an 8 second clock that you had to release the ball by 8 seconds. So there's been some variations, like when that 8 second clock started.
Right.
Before, it was like when you brought the ball totally under control, but now it's like as soon as it hits one of your players on your side, your 8 second clock now starts, and there's little tweaks here and there, but the overall principle is that throw as hard as you can, but it has to be on the ground.
Right.
Has it touched the ground before that high ball line
Yeah.
for you to be able to.
There's like a baseball version too. Was it called
Yeah.
beat ball, I think? And
Beat ball, yeah, I played that as well. The pitcher and catcher are on your team, and their goal is to try to get their team to hit the ball. So you go to a cadence, ready, set, and then when he says set, he or she is usually throwing the ball at that point. Because we had a girl pitcher. Sorry, not a girl pitcher. I'm very sorry. I have two girls. I should know better. She was a woman. She wasn't a girl. She was a woman pitcher. And so she would say set, and when she said pitch, the ball should already be coming across our sweet zone, and she would know, where each batter's bat is going to be, and that comes from practice and practice. So we had a guy pitcher and a woman pitcher during our team, and you hit the ball, and the other team has to field the ball and pick it up cleanly under control off of the ground before the batter reaches one of two bases. So you only have a third base and a first base, and it's random. The umpire or the table picks which base you go to.
Right.
So at any given time, you could go to third base, you go to first base. You had to reach that base, touch it before they pick up, cleanly field the ball.
And the base is like beep, right? They make noises so you know where they are.
Yeah, they're beep. They're round cylinders set on top of like a square foam box that has the beeper in it, and they're foam, so you can smash them, tackle them, do whatever you want to them, kick them as hard as you can, because we're flying down there towards these things and trying to touch them before they pick that ball up.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So it's fun. I used to play it, but I sort of wanted to be more like baseball, where we got to go around the bases. And some people have been trying to introduce something like that. I didn't get to see the demo of it because I didn't attend that demo, but I think they call it Italian baseball or something like that. But they actually try to have you circle the bases and things like that.
Right.
But it's a great time to bond with fellow blind and visually impaired people out there in the heat. Oh, and you have two spotters. Well, you have sighted spotters that are out there on the field with you. We had two very lovely, kind college kids high school kids at that time. Two twins that were there, two twin sisters that were there, and they were very good spotters. And usually try to divide the field into numbers, like 1 through 5 or 1 through 6. Whichever way each team wants to do it.
Right.
So when the ball's hit in a certain area, they'll just yell out that number, and they can only say like that syllable or one word. They can't say "ball's over there, go run towards it." You know what I mean? So if they say one, and if they say one, it means that it's up in the air. Or one means that it's coming to you quickly. So like again, each team has their own sort of thing that they do, but that's sort of like the underlying rules of it. Your spotter can only say like one word or so, as giving you a clue where the ball is, and
come closer to the mic a little bit.
And they try to stop us from running into each other, but we're usually spaced out enough that you don't. I played the outfield for the most part, but I was able to move around the different parts. But a friend of mine, Sherlock, who's a Jersey legend in sports himself, is play out there with me as well. And I played on a team that he started here in New Jersey. Sherlock's a big guy. He's like 6. We call him 6'7". He's probably like 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". I met him during my goal ball days to play for Jersey when I played for Paba, which was Philadelphia's team. So another good influence or role model on me as well. He's a Jersey business guy. He does assistive technology. He's a jaw sender and other assistive technology tools for people here in New Jersey.
Right.
So I played for his team.
Oh, cool. You were going to talk about an incident you had at a go ball event.
Yeah, so we're walking with my two kids and my wife and I and another lady who was a parent of another player that was there, who was visually impaired and married to a friend of mine, a friend of ours, was something to the sense of like, I'm not going to quote word for word because I can't remember it word for word, but it was something in the sense of like why aren't you using your kids? I think we're looking for the bathroom or something like that. And we're like, kids aren't guide dogs. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have kids to guide us around. You know what I mean? Like so we we consciously try not to depend on them for things.
I was going
Now
to ask you if you
that's
guys did that ever, like you used them to help you see
right.
things.
Now it's impossible not to because there's sometimes like well read this letter or come here. This computer is not working. We need to file your application for this. It's not accessible. Click on that checkbox. Because at the same time, we're also teaching them about disability and about the barriers that we have to face and to keep in consideration. And, you know, also just giving them a wide education on, on people that are out there and the disabilities that other people have. And, you know, so they're aware of us being blind.
Right.
But again, it's not like they're doing every single thing for us. And there's even things that we say, no, don't worry about it. I'll do it. But yeah, but we can get it done. I was like, no, I have a way to get it done. It might take me a bit longer, but I'll just use my phone and try to get what I need
Well, you want to be
off
role
of the
models
print.
to them as well. You don't want them to think
Right,
like, oh, everything's handed to you. You get older, and he's like, oh, well, mommy and daddy just sat around and just made us do everything. They didn't do
right,
nothing, So, and that's not who you are anyway. So, yeah, it'd be kind of
right,
silly to start now.
right. So we do that, and like when we go out, we walk with them and things like that. But yeah, we tell them like, I'm not walking with you because we need you to sort of like, you know, guide us. Because even like now, like we're in the hotel and like they'll come out the elevator. And I'm like, okay, go ahead, and they're reaching back to grab me. Like, no, I'm fine, I'm fine. Like you don't have to grab me. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more like the reason why we're holding you now that we're out and about is for safety, right? Because we don't want somebody to come and snatch you. Like we just heard it here in New York, maybe like a week or so ago. Lady walking with her three kids, and the guy gets out of a car and runs and grabs the youngest one and jumps back in the car, and they have to like run and dive to the window and try to pull him back out. And I'm like, we think of that stuff. So imagine if we're walking and we're holding canes, and they're like, oh, that's two blind people with two kids. They won't know we come up and snatch one, right? So
Right.
we're holding you more so we know where you are,
Right.
right? So nobody can come up and just grab you away from us. It'd be like our worst nightmare. You know what I mean? So
Right.
there's strategic things that we do when we're out places. Like when we used to go to stores, I would position myself in the aisle a certain way that if anybody came down that particular aisle, they would have to go by me.
Right.
Or if they came from the other aisle and they would grab one of my kids. I'm still in between them and the exit of that store, of the Toys R Us that we would always go to. So I
Right.
knew like, okay, I can let them feel free here. I don't have to be on them. Let them wander up and down these aisles because if anybody grabbed them, to get out of this section, I'd only have to take 2 steps and turn a corner and they're blocked, right?
Right.
So I felt comfortable there because I had control of my space.
Right.
And that's what I tend to do when we go out. Now, I make sure that I have control of the space. And if I can't have control of the space, then we're stuck to them like glue. And let them know, like, this is the reason why we're doing it. You know, mommy and daddy are perfectly fine walking on their own. I can whip my cane out at any time and get to where we need to get to, but this is for your safety. Because there's bad people out here that will try to take advantage of
Right.
our situation.
I'm pretty sure Miss Robbins told me. Is it true that you guys to find them when they were really young, you put bells on their shoes?
We used to we would put bells on their shoes. We always had this sort of like they always knew just to like speak up for us.
Okay.
Um, Especially like when we're out, they would always, Daddy, I'm here, or blah blah blah. Um, we we looked into different like locator type of things, but we never found anything that was really going to work back then. That would play a beep or something like that. We bought something like just in case they got too far away, that we could maybe trigger it, but we never had to really use it.
Right.
Um, like in that sense. But yeah, like we never really let them get like extremely too far down out of the way. Or if we did, again, it was an area that we could control. My wife was much more nervous, than I was. I'm like, look, they're both together. We're here in like our version of the Franklin Institute. They're doing the ropes course. We're sitting right next to the exit. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
our kids know like make noise. You know what I mean? Like if anything happening, make noise. So you know
Well, we
they might try to get
go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
they might try to get them out of here. Like they're gonna have to go by us. There's no way that they're quietly going by us with our struggling kid.
Right. Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
You've mentioned her multiple times, obviously. So, what is it like to actually meet your soulmate, and she's also blind, and then being blind parents on top of it?
Yeah. So I happened to meet her at a college preparation program, summer program thing that the Commission for the Blind put on here in New Jersey. I happened to be home for that summer. Didn't really have anything to do, and I was bored. Um, so I went to a first program, which is like at another place, and I met some friends there. And then we all decided that we are going to try to go to this college program the following summer. Like, okay, something to look forward to. So we're there. I didn't even meet her the first week I was there. I didn't know her at all, but we had done this thing in one of our classes. It was a trust fall type of thing when you got behind the person and they lean backwards and you catch them. So, me and my friends had done that morning. So in the afternoon, we would all just hang out outside of the dorms. And let me back up by saying that this program took place on an actual college campus. So it was to give high school visually impaired people sort of a preparation for college. If they wanted to go to college, what it would be like. We stayed on the grounds of the university in the dorms. We ate at the cafeteria. There were other camps there as well. There's a girls soccer team that was always there, and some other people that were there. Um, and during the day, we would have college classes. We had SAT prep. We would have math, um, English, all different type of college preparation courses. So in the afternoon, we were before dinner, and we would all just hang out in our different little groups and stuff like that. And I was always known for taking this spot on this ramp. It was like a wheelchair ramp up the side, and you went up the first, then did like a U-turn and went back up the other way. And I would always just lay out there, going back to my guarded solitude type of
Yeah.
type of demeanor, TJ. I would lay out there by myself on this railing, like because it made like a little double railing, like right at the bend.
Uh huh.
I would lay there with my jacket, and I would just listen to the quiet and the airplanes going over. Because again, coming from Camden, it was noisy, right? I'm like amazed by
Right.
just the solitude here. I would just sit there and just think, right? Whatever's going through my dark little mind. I'm just sitting there thinking by myself. So my friends came down there, and we were just all hanging out in that little general landing area. And then something just hit me, like, I'm going to see who wants to do the trust fall with me. So I get up, because and again, like you said, it's not that you weren't open and friendly. It wasn't that I was open and friendly. I was usually a very outgoing person, but I never really needed to be the center of attention. I was never one of those people like, hey, look at me, look at me. But if I cool with you or that whatever, I could be that. I could switch it off and on. I went down in front of everybody that was out there and a grassy area. And I was like, who wants to do the trust fall? And she happened to be sitting there on the steps in front of me, but she was talking to this other guy. Well, the guy was trying to talk to her. And lo and behold, she didn't like that guy. I didn't want to talk to him. So she uses that opportunity to say, I do, right? Just to get away from him. So she comes over and, so I'm talking. And so she turns around. And, being blind, we don't have that luxury of looking across the room and seeing that pretty girl. I'm like, oh, man, I want to go talk to her.
Right.
Right. It almost has to be like
You can't lock
coming to
eyes and the
contact.
music plays and all that
Right.
bullshit. Yeah.
Right. Right. That's not our life. So, you don't have to introduce us or you get involved with them some type of close way. So she says she does. So she comes over, she turns her back to me, and then she falls back into my arms. And it's this little petite girl. She has, she's small, but she has like, shape to her, and she has this long, gorgeous hair. And she's in my arms. I'm like, and it's that awkward like moment, like the 2 seconds that I'm still holding her, and she's like,
Yeah.
and then like,
Is it over?
Like, oh, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool, nice, thank you, and I walk away.
Yeah.
What was that, right? So like even then, I go out to my friends, and I'm just like, whatever. But now the girls that I was hanging out with then, they get saw it, and they went to her and was like, you should really, talk to our friend Paul or whatever. At the same time, it was this other girl that I didn't like, but she liked me, so she was also like pursuing me or trying to talk to me. And another friend of ours was trying to hook me up with her, and I just really wasn't having it. And she was interrupting my solitude moment at the railing one
shit.
time, and then they bring my wife Jessica out and send her down there, and I just immediately just start talking to her. And then since that point in time, we were just like friends. We all started hanging out. Both started hanging out together, and we sort of dated during that time. But then we went back to our prospective cities. She was Jersey City. I was in Philadelphia. She didn't see how it was going to work being long distance. And this time I was staying at Miss Robbins' house, and I made her a tape of like, this is where I'm living at now, blah 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 blah. And she still claims that she has this tape somewhere. I hope she doesn't. But we tried to keep in contact. We had mutual friends. We played go ball. So I would see her like at some of these tournaments. But I went ahead and got another girlfriend when I came to Overbrook for high school. So next summer I went back because I had promised I would stay in contact, but my other girlfriend did not want me to stay in contact with her. So I was between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
So when I went back there that summer, she was not very happy with me. We did not have a very good start during that first 2 weeks. I ended up smashing an ice cream cone in her face because she was saying some mean things to me. And then she dumped the juice on my head in retaliation. And then we started talking again like it's
This is such a rom-com movie. This is like got everything. You got the part where you fall apart and then you meet back up again. You're even basically making mixtapes, except it's visually impaired mixtapes where you're saying what you're doing with your life instead of making songs.
So then, so we stay in contact throughout like college a little bit. And then I went to go study abroad. I called her over there. She didn't have the time of day for me. She was going to homecoming, blah, 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 blah. She said it wasn't that. She just was running out at that time when I called her. I didn't call her the whole rest of the time I was there, but when I got back, I was sort of having some trouble adapting to being back. You know what I mean? Like, I liked being over there. So I called her. We started talking again. And then we started really dating then. And hanging out that summer. And then we started dating. And then we got engaged. And then we got married. And then I moved up here for other reasons that I won't go into here. And then we first, when we were first talking, we were dating. She wasn't sure she would want to have kids because she was afraid. She didn't know how she would take care of them and things like that. But I told her like I've had little brothers and stuff like that before, so I was used to changing diapers and things like that and taking care of little kids. So I was like, it's really nothing to it. I'm there. We can figure it out.
Right. And I think a parent would have that even if the other parent would have been sighted. But the fact that you're
Right.
both blind on top of it's a whole different. There's a bunch more obstacles that the average person or couple wouldn't have to deal with.
Right. So we talked about all that, and again, we went looking for resources, and that's when we realized that all the resources out there were for sighted parents with blind children, and nothing was really out there for blind people with sighted. We had to try to find talking thermometers. We found one, right, out of all these other options. We found one. We tried to think about things that we would need to help us take care of our child once
Oh,
they died.
but before you go, did you ever? Because every parent, especially moms, they have like guilt of can I pass this on to my kids? So did you think two blind parents could actually have blind children?
Yes, we had that as well. So we were because my genetic my retinoblastoma, we had to see whether it was hereditary or whether it was environmental. And there was a test we could do. So we got it done after we had our first child. So I had to go get a blood test. We found the geneticist, and we got me tested, and they couldn't do our first daughter yet until she was born. So they wouldn't know whether she had retinoblastoma until she was born. So she was born, and we got her tested. It turned out that the one that I had was a 50-50 chance, right? It wasn't the one that wasn't, 50-50. Like, okay, so as soon as she was born, along with the pediatrician, she had an eye doctor right out of the bat. They didn't see anything. We got her tested. She did not have the gene. So we're like, okay, good. All right. So that we passed that hurdle. That was good. But we also keep them with eye doctors, just as a general principle of their general overall health. The same thing with like hearing and stuff like that. So when we're planning on having the second kid, we had to make the decision again, like we want a second kid, but do we take that chance? Do we take that 50-50 chance of passing it on? And I had, a lot of guilt around that. Like, it would be because of me. But then we're like, well, what if people that have a blind kid would be for two blind people? Because we would be able to help them and get them through. So it wouldn't be the worst thing. But then we're like, but look how hard like life is. You know what I mean? Is that fair to put that burden on a kid? You know what I mean? We're like, well, technology's gotten better. So all that's going through your head.
Right.
So we decided to go for it, and then we had our second one, and we had her go through the same genetic testing, and she's also negative. So we're like, okay, at that point, God blessed us with two kids without any type of visual impairment with a 50-50 odd. We're not going to test fate anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, those
Right.
are good odds. Let's not push it with three,
Right. Yeah.
And, so we made a conscious decision not to go forward with the third. And again, you know, it was like how much of of a of a guilt or would I feel? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some people might say, well, why would you feel guilty? You're blind and you've done well for yourself. But as you said, and as you know, TJ, yeah, you might be doing good and doing whatever, but it comes at a heavy cost. It comes at a heavy mental cost.
Yeah.
It's a mental thing that we're constantly dealing with. It's not an easy life. It's not an easy thing to deal with, especially when you hit barriers in your life and it's caused by society,
Right.
and there are barriers there that shouldn't have to be there. Like you asking where the potatoes is, all that guy had to do was like, the potatoes are right this way. Follow me, please, and
Right.
that would have made your something very simple made would have made that a better experience
Right. Well,
for you.
and you
You know
make
what I
it
mean?
look good. Like you don't make blindness look bad. But what
Right.
people don't see is on the survey, that's one of the new things that has developed in the last so many years is all these like invisible disabilities. And one of
Right.
them is obviously mental health. And a lot of people, you could be, me, I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve so people know when I'm kind of affected. But there's a lot of people that can hide it and they can just go live their life and dilly dally around and smile. And deep down, they may be suicidal. They're just, they know how to hide it.
Right.
And with you, it's like, yeah, like you make blindness look really fun and easy, but it's not.
And
It's just,
not because I know how to hide it. You know what I mean? And
right,
a lot of times of my quietness or my things that I'm shutting down is because I'm I've been through a lot that week. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Right.
I just don't want to deal with the world. Like I want to sit here where I am, where I've made it, where it's safe for me, and I can be switched off. You know,
Right.
like just sometimes we just need to be switched off
Absolutely. But
because
how
once
much easier though is it that you have another person that's exactly like you, but also also appreciates you and loves you, and goes to the same circumstances, and it's like not only can she be there for you as a parent, as the other parent, take some load off you, but emotionally she can be there for you because she knows exactly what you're going through.
yeah, it's good in some ways, but even then, her upbringing is different from mine.
Okay.
So
Right.
where I was thrown more to the streets and had to be take like she was I call her a car baby. She had a different upbringing than I am.
Right.
She was she always had a car. She always was driven around like her ex her ex you know exposure to public transportation came when she started hanging out with me, making her come down to Philadelphia to hang out with us, and we having her walking around the city and jumping on and off of buses and taking the train back home. So that was sort of like an exposure to her. She was more sheltered than I was. Um,
Right. But that's kind of the
I
balance.
took
That's
her.
probably what makes the
Yeah,
relationship good. Maybe she brings a little more book
right,
smart, you bring more street smart. You both have kind of
right.
both, but you kind of, again, I think a lot of people
And
think you
it's
need to have everything in common when you get into a relationship, but
no, definitely not.
you don't. That's what kind of
Because
makes it bad if you're just dating yourself at that point.
if I could date it myself, I would know.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't be talking to them.
Not a good thing.
Yeah, you wouldn't even
Not a good
call them.
thing.
You'd just be
Right,
you'd probably be a room over and you wouldn't even conversate.
right. Because I sort of even told her, when I was dating, I told her like, why do you want to be with me? Like I'm such a dark person. Like you know what I mean? Like I'm
I
just
hear you.
like why me? Like I have a lot of problems. I have a lot of flaws. You know, her head is like she can make them better. She can deal with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And in some sense, if I didn't have her dealing with some things, I almost needed that sort of counterbalance to me. And people
absolutely.
ask like, did you date a blind person, marry a blind person because you're blind? I'm like, no, I've had other relationships that were sighted people and things like that, but I don't know if it would have worked out the same. You know,
Hmm.
I don't know if I would have been sort of like is this person with me just because they pity me or they like want to take care of me, or like you know what I mean? Like is this
Yeah, yeah, no.
yeah like
And you start to
and
feel
I
like a
have other
burden.
blind right, and I have other blind friends that have sighted wives or sighted husbands and that are doing fine. Like one of the role models that I had when I was growing up, go ball player Greg in Philadelphia. I looked up to him and he was the first sort of relationship that I saw with a blind person married to a sighted person, and he had two sighted kids. I saw him like, okay, so it is possible. Because back in those days, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, 12, you start thinking about girls. You're like, yeah, but can I ever be in a relationship? Can I ever have a family? Like, is someone gonna want to marry me because I'm blind?
Right.
But seeing that, sort of gave me hope. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, but she's
it
probably
happened
like the
that
perfect balance for you because, like, I'm sure if she was a girl that was kind of maybe dark and negative or whatever, had similar qualities. She's just super dark about everything. And you say something and it's like, oof, wow. And then she just says something even worse. It might be off putting to you because it's like, wow, like I need something. You probably didn't know it, but you probably need someone who's a little more cheerful and giddy and, kind of shows you some things that you kind of weren't really exposed to, or just things you didn't have going on in your head because like I know with me there's people around, if they're like super negative, I can't have them around because it just brings my depression down and it brings me just like oof no. I need people
right,
that are kind of just like get like goofy and just like bubbly and like to have fun, because it brings it brings the best out of me. And I'm
right.
not even talking about like a marriage because I'm single, but it's yeah, I'm sure that's probably what she. I've seen you guys together. I've only met her twice, but I've seen you guys together, and it's like you can tell like she definitely brings something to the table that brings a little more out of you.
Yeah, she definitely does. She definitely does. compliment me, and she doesn't judge, because that person that that confided in, so she knows all of the deep down dark things, and she when she sees me going down that well, she tries her best to pull me out of it. You know what I mean? So it's like it's I guess from that trust fall, believe it or not, it's like you sort of know, you sort of knew that that was sort of like the personality that you sort of needed, although that we do come from different social economic backgrounds and experiences, blind, like with me, from me, she got sort of that independence, right? Being able
Right.
to say to her parents, like, no, I'm going here. We're going to London. Yeah, just me and him. Taking a plane. We're going to go visit his friends that he had in college. We're staying there for like a month, and we're coming back. Yeah, we're going to Jamaica for a honeymoon. No, by ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, so I sort of given her more of that. You can do it. Like, don't let nobody tell you that that we can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might get lost, you know, going here, but we'll make our way out of it. We'll ask for directions, or if we need help, we'll ask for help. But let's go do it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. It's the
I sort of
balance.
push her on that whole independence sort of side of things, and self confidence, being able to do anything that like she can do.
Right.
Because on the other hand, she doesn't know how good she is, or her own self worth. Sometimes I have to tell her, like, come on, like, you could get that job. Like, you're the smartest person I know, and I'm not just saying that because they're married. Like,
Right.
and then she bounces me like on that whole emotional part, which is where I really need to like work on. Because I can say that I'm very caring, loving person, and but I don't show it. Like looking at me, you probably won't get that from me. But if you're my friend, or I'll give a stranger the shirt off my back.
Right.
Like,
You're a little rough around the
you might not
edges
get
sometimes.
that. Yeah, you won't get that just by my exterior, you know, visions that I put out there for the general public.
Right. But like I said, it goes back to you being an 8-year-old adult. Like, when you just, I'm sure there was a lot of love that you needed to have at that point, and again,
Wasn't getting.
yeah, you weren't getting it. So it's like now you're an adult, and I mean, I'm sure the kid thing probably changed a lot too because now you have to be. It breaks down all the walls that you have. Like you instantly, I'm sure,
Definitely.
fall in love, and you're just like, oh my god, like all the love just kind of pours out of you. So if anything, it probably just goes all to them anyway.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
what was I gonna? Oh shit, I was gonna ask you something. Oh, never mind. But yeah, I was gonna ask you something because my mind is just off. But yeah, no, like I said, I'm sure. Just like I said, having kids has just got to be one of those. Oh, I know. I was gonna ask you. Did you? Again, it might be a dark question, but it's for a person who has some dark, thoughts. Like, do you ever think, like, do you ever get sad, or you or your wife, ever just get that feeling of like it just sucks that you can't like see what they look like?
Yeah, I think the question that they've often asked us, and are you speaking more like of the kids, or just like the wife itself,
No,
my
just
wife
just
itself?
you and her, like of what they like, because everybody wants to know what their kids look like, and
Right.
everybody says, "Oh, my
Yeah.
kids are beautiful," but it's like in your case, you're gonna say they're beautiful, and I'm sure they are, but for you and especially I'm sure especially for your wife, because women are more emotional in that sense where it comes, it's like, yeah, I want to know my kids are okay and they look all right and whatever.
Yeah. They even asked us, like, you know what we look like, and it's like that's probably the thing that I would love the most, is to be able to sort of see them.
Even like a 5-second glance, and then it just goes away.
Right. Like I know their facial features. I know their hair. I know you know those things are pretty. People describe them to me, have told me. But yeah, it's sort of like one of the things that I would love to see, and that's sort of like when I start going down to that dark area. Sometimes I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, things that I would love to see. I would love to see, like, sun setting over the mountain. Because I read a lot of books. I hear like all these descriptions, things that are happening, and damn, like things that other people probably take for granted, or things I would just love to get one glimpse of. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and
Yeah, it's very
you know,
basic. It's not something most people would think about.
yeah, child would you know would sort of be one of them. But again, I told him like if I had the option to see now, though, I don't know if I would necessarily take it because I would have to learn all over again. Because I know what a car feels like, but when I know what it looked like, right, or when it scared the crap out of me, because in a sense, you know what something is, same way you learn as a kid. You see an object, but someone puts a name to it, right?
Right.
So you just turn my eyes on, I'm gonna be like I wouldn't know what anything is without touching it because I'm so used to seeing it. Same way as you put a blindfold on a sighted person and you tell them to feel it, like they don't always know what it is. They're feeling around like, what is this? And they
Right.
take the blindfold off and they see it because the brain, their way of seeing things comes through the sense of the sight, and the
It's a
brain then
rewiring.
puts a label to it. It's us just through the hands. And even like touching something sort of is different from how the eyes interact with it.
Right.
Which is I learned doing art because I would just like, okay, this is a tree, and I know trees. The way I feel it, it has these leaves like this.
Right.
And then when I would show it to my brother, like, okay, I tried to make trees in the distance with this and this. Does it look like it? And he's like, no,
Yeah, you
because
describe
the
things two different
eye,
ways. You're describing it
right?
through
Because the
feel. He's
eye,
describing it through visual.
right? Because visually, the eyes aren't sinking. They're only seeing like the edges of the leaves, and then they blur in. So you're
Right.
seeing more like a mass of it. So when he would draw it out, I'm like, it's still like a mass of like lines. Yeah, but that's how we see the leaves. We don't see like each individual leaf layered, sort of like how you did it. I'm like,
Right.
oh. And I always tell my daughters because they'll go and looking for something, and they'll open like the fridge or something like that, or they'll open the door like I don't see it. I'm like, move things around. I'm like, remember, your eyes can't move things. And I would
Right.
reach with my hands and pull it out. Oh, it's blended in. I'm like, yeah, it's the same color, or it's underneath that spoon. If you would reach in and move it, you would see it. I always tell them like, remember, your eyes can't move things.
Right.
So if I got my sight back, I don't like I would have to go to school again. Like I would have to start
Yeah.
like from the beginning. This is red. This is blue. This is yellow. This is a car.
Right.
So even if you put a human face in front of me, I'd probably be like, what the hell is that? Like I probably couldn't tell you what pretty was. Until
Yeah.
somebody again told me
Well, it's
that's what
fascinating
considered.
that you said because my friend Paul, my other friend, like he lost his sight when he was a teenager, and he's now 36, I believe. And he was telling me about how faces are now starting to like go, and he can't remember what his mom looks like. And he said his favorite color was orange, but he can't really remember what orange looks like. And
Right.
you lost yours much younger, but can you kind of remember anything as far as what visual, like if someone says the color blue, can you kind of remember what blue looks like?
No, I can no longer remember what it looks like.
And how old are you now?
So in
I don't know
my
if I asked.
so in my head now, I had to study colors. I've done that through sort of like through my art. I just design jewelry and do art and things like that. So I needed to know what colors were and what they're made up of, and whether they're warm or cold colors. So I studied the color wheel, and I sort of know like what their intensities are and what colors go with what.
You know, like blue is
Um,
sky and water and things like that. But
right,
yeah,
water is sort of more cooler. It'll blend into purple and red, which are coming out to be like more sort of like light or high
right,
frequency type of colors. So I studied that. I really studied the color wheel and the relationship of colors, complementary colors, primary colors, and things like that. To sort of get a better grasp of it, and even like with matching my clothes, knowing what with what, and the different shades of them. So again, something that someone could look at and sort of get that feel. I had to go and get a degree in. I mean, just one of those life things. I had to go learn it. I had to go study it.
yeah, no, that's yeah. Like I said, when he was telling me that stuff, I never really thought of it. Like, oh yeah, I guess you can just forget something that years and years go by. And for you, again, how old are you again now?
I'm 41. I think I'm about to
41.
turn 42 in August. August
That's
4th.
so messed up. I met you as a kid. Um,
Yeah, man.
but yeah, it's crazy. I mean, again, it's what 37 years from when you could see. So yeah. I mean, obviously things get blurry anyway in life. You start to forget things, but to forget what something actually looks like when you knew what it looked like at some point in your life. But again, if you're 4, you don't really know everything anyway. You might know, okay,
Right,
it's color brown, but you probably couldn't name 10 things that were brown.
right.
So yeah,
And
no,
I think now what I do is sort of like associate. Like if I was to teach a blind person like what colors were, I would sort of use texture now, right? So I would sort of go the more cooler colors. I would do more of a softer type of texture to like the darker ones, maybe like more rough, so like orange tealish, going to that sort of type of thing was what I would how I would try to teach it.
right.
I think that's what they've done with some things I've seen in books, like this is red, and it would do like a certain like texture for that type of color.
Yeah. This
So
may be
now in
a
my head, I just have
no. Go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
yeah, like so now I just have it broken down into like yeah, this color gives off this type of wavelength of light. You know what I mean? It's technical now.
Right. This may be a stupid question, but do you feel like if somebody went through, I don't know, it was just blind for like 2 years or 3 years, do you think it would make people a little more understanding of what people go through, like whether it's racially, whether it's, all the gender stuff we're dealing with now and all the, the people with disability, like all the judgmental shallowness that we go through. If you kind of put everybody on the same playing field as far as visually, you think that would actually make any difference? Because in general, like you don't know what people look like unless they tell you, as far as like color, the skin tone and their disability, unless you can hear a wheelchair or something. But overall, like you're kind of on a playing field of you have very little information about a person other than maybe their, how they sound vocally.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. Do you think that could actually change some things in the world if everybody was blind for a couple years?
I think it would. And not, some people aren't going to agree, but from my current job and jobs that I've had trying to educate people into disability and making things accessible for people with disabilities. A lot of it comes from their perspective or their judgments or what they don't know about it. Um,
Right.
Also, I think that this pandemic and having people forced to use Zoom and not rely on wearing masks and not rely on facial expressions. Like so many times I've heard these news stories, I've heard these people whining like, I can't see the smile, I can't see their faces, and I'm just like, get the fuck over it, dude. Like I
Right.
can't see your face every goddamn day.
Yeah, I
But
can't see your hand
you mean to
motions,
tell
nothing.
me, yeah, like you mean to tell me because you can't see my face now that now you're like now you can't function because I don't have my video on, like, and 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 you can't see me, like you're so you're so triggered over that. Like that's me every day attending these meetings. I don't get the privilege of seeing your face or seeing you in that little box, but I'm still functioning. That just goes to show you, you take a time to stop and think that you don't need that. Like you don't really need it because I'm doing without it, right?
Right.
I think it's sort of forced some people without them even knowing what they're experiencing, that they were experiencing exactly what visually impaired people experience every day. And if you don't like it, then help, you know what I mean? Help make it so that everyone can be included. There's been some meetings that I've been involved in with a company that I do some work with, and everyone who started speaking described themselves, right? So
Right.
I started like by saying, "Hi, I'm Paul Day. I'm a light skinned a light skinned male. I'm wearing a white button down shirt. I have straight, curly, shoulder length hair. I have a patch over my right eye, and I'm sitting in front of a lattice screen background, right? And then a lady that I've been working with for a while, I never knew how she looked like. She described herself, and I'm like, that's not the picture I've had of her in my head. Like,
Yeah.
wow, you know what I mean? And that really like opened. I'm like, man, like they they get they, meaning people that can see, perfectly fine, get the privilege of being able to walk into the room and seeing the person,
Yeah.
right? Like all that information that's never available to me, they just get it on rote. You,
Right. Yeah.
you know what I mean? So, but having that world open to me and having that accommodation and was really meant something to me. And she wasn't doing it just for me. It was just making that event accessible to people that couldn't see the people presenting
Yeah.
on the screen. And I'm like, wow, 'cause, you know what I mean? Like we don't normally get to just say, hey, look at that person with the blue hair, or that person like Now my family, especially like my sister, is very good at doing that for me. Since I was little, we would walk around and she would describe things that's going on around me, like this person has this on or has that on, or partners. A business partner that I had on the side venture that I was doing, she was very good at describing things for me and doing it in a way that it was me and her one on one, even if we're in front of like you know like a vendor that I was trying to get to cast something in silver for me, and she was very good at like not having them speak directly to her, which often occurs that people won't speak to the blind or the disabled person. They'll speak to the person with them as if we're not in the room.
Right.
She made it very obvious who was the lead, even to the point of like taking a step back behind me, just so body language wise they can see that you need to talk to him. And when I needed something described, she would step up and she would go through with me. You know what I mean? So some people that have been around have been very good at that. But yeah,
No, I
I
gotcha.
think if some people could experience it, um, it it would make getting some things changed a lot easier.
Yeah.
Um,
Levels the
then again,
playing
some
field a little
people
bit.
might, yeah, and some people might be like get more. I don't know how you're doing it. Might tedious more, but I think the benefit of giving people a dose, letting them see how it is, will outweigh the negatives that could possibly happen from it.
Right. Well, I've
There's
said,
always going to be good and bad for anything that anybody does. It's just balance. But I think it's better if more people could experience it.
yeah, and I think we're a harsh reality of how quick things can turn in your life. The reality is like you could get into a car accident and be paralyzed, and all of a sudden now you're
Yes, I tell
disabled.
people that all the time.
Like
Like disability can happen anytime.
yeah, you could be disabled and be
Happen.
disabled even more. Like I don't think people
Right.
understand that. I think that you don't get one. Like there's plenty of people out here dealing with all kind of problems. But I mean, look, I have a vision problem. I can lose the rest of my sight. I mean, regardless
Right.
if it's due to an accident or just what's going on with my eyes as it is, it's not. So I think it's a realization a lot of people don't want to come to terms with. Like, oh, that's not that far from me. I can easily become him, and that's maybe partially they're scared of us because they know, like I said, we are a realization. They don't want to know
Right.
what we go through because even if we may make it look good, but deep down that might not be something they can handle because not everybody can handle it.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is that, I mean, it could be easier, and that's sort of like dealing with sort of like making things accessible. It's like a lot of it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be this way,
Right.
and you have the power to not make it that way, to not to,
Yeah.
and that's just baffling because like you can make someone's life much easier, and a lot of the
Come close
things
to
that
the
you
mic.
can do to make a lot of the things that you can do to make lives easier will make everyone's life easier. It's like the perfect example is the wheelchair ramp going
Yep.
no or the curve cut. People in wheelchairs and disabilities fought for that for years. Like one of the groups that I was with in Philadelphia when I first started working, a lot of those people that I met there were pioneers in that movement of getting those wheelchair ramps, and they slept on the steps of courthouses, gotten arrested for it, and now there's curb cuts everywhere, and you'll see perfectly ambulatory people pull you over to walk down that curb cut. I
Yeah.
mean, just because they're pulling their suitcase or their briefcase or the stroller, not knowing that that thing that's making your life easier, making that luxury for you, was fought for by people in wheelchairs.
Yep.
So a lot of things that can make life successful, like talking buses, talking trains, all that kind of stuff was like fought for
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make
I talk about the
my life.
documentary Crip Camp all the time because that's what it's about. It's all about the ADA and all the things that they fought for of getting us so we could actually go to public school, so we can, go, so we can actually work and, anything. And just so we can live in society, even if life is still hard for us and even though people are still making it harder for us, the opportunities that we have now are nothing compared to what we didn't have back in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to make this crazy. I mean, it's already been 2 hours, so I don't want to talk your ear off. And I hope you had fun. Like I said, I really appreciate you doing this for me.
No problem. No problem. That'd be fun. Could connect.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch. Like I said, anything you need or whatever, man. Like I said, we have a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. But like I said, you ever need anyone to talk to, I'm around. Yeah, like I said again, I appreciate you doing this. And I don't know. Do you have anything to promote? I always ask people.
No, nothing as of yet.
Okay. Well,
But
either way, when it comes out, if you do have something, let me know. I'll put it in the description.
all right.
Yep.
My door's open as well. So if you ever need to talk, just shoot me that text, shoot me that call.
Yeah. Well.
Like I said, I'm working on being responsive. So badger me. The person that badgers me the most gets my attention.
Fair enough.
I got the family and the kids over here pulling me in one direction and work. But
No, I
I'm
got you.
always open and willing. So
I've had to change
keep
that.
on my radar. Keep on my radar.
I got you. Fair enough.
Keep on my radar. Get my attention.
Yeah, I've had to change that because doing this podcast, I have to go find people. Like, I know you, but 95% of the people I've interviewed, I don't know. So I know them now, but I become friends with them and all. But I did not know any of these people for the most part. So I actually have to keep up with them and make sure they still want to do it. And but yeah, with you, like I said, I'd love to definitely keep in touch and we can do something soon. We can talk off mic and forget all this. But like I said, I'll let you know when it comes out, and either way, we'll keep in touch afterwards.
All right.
All right, brother. You take care.
All right, man. Take care. Be safe.
You too, man. Bye. All right, guys. I think this is the longest episode yet. I swear the last so many episodes have been so long. I'm trying not to, but like I said, these are great conversations. I don't want to split them into two because where do I split that? Like, when he stopped going to school, then we cut it from sports. I don't know. That's just a real interview. You take your time when you can listen to the whole thing. You listen to the whole thing. Just take your time with it. Like I said, I get it. There's one cut maybe. I know everybody gets their little antsiness. Like with me, I try to stay on top of it because I want to know that I listen to every episode. But when you got 2-hour episodes coming out, it's like, oh, I can't listen to this in the whole week. And, there's another one coming out 2 days from now. It's like, I get it. But just do what you got to do. Listen to it when you can. I appreciate the support. And like I said, I've known Paul for a long time. And it's great that we're reconnecting. And, I just want to get his story out there because he is a great guy and he's accomplished a lot. And that's just kind of part of the story. We didn't really delve into what he does for a living and all that. And, maybe down the road we'll do an update episode or something. I'm definitely all for it, and I'm sure he would be too. So I'll see you guys on the next one. And, everyone take care and look out for each other. All right. Bye, guys.